It is clear that climate change is not an economy versus ecology debate. And yet the concerns of many countries are relevant. You need economic growth to pull people out of poverty, and the global economy is under pressure. Are we then staring at a prolonged growth slowdown? How is India poised? Are we on track to achieve the $5 trillion mark? Will the recent fiscal stimulus package help in reviving growth in India? How will the US-China trade war impact the global economy? These questions are being asked every day. And I put some of them to none other than the former Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Professor Arvind Panagariya, in a fireside discussion at the Wion Global Summit. This is what he told me.
So I think we have done quite well in the last, I would say, 20 years or so. If I take even a long period of about 15 years, we have grown about 7.7%. In the last 5 years, we have grown 7.5% under Prime Minister Modi. But also, I think a lot of the reforms are accumulating. So, we already had a set of reforms under Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, then under Prime Minister Vajpayee, now under Prime Minister Modi. And at least 2 or 3 very big reforms happened under Prime Minister Modi in the first term: the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act, the GST, the Aadhaar, the whole digital platform and related to that, the direct benefit transfers. So those things happened. But even within the short period in the second term, and I think now the government is moving much faster. We don't see it yet, or most people who are not paying enough attention are not seeing it. But the truth of the matter is that within this short period, 2 big reforms on the economic side. I mean, there's other stuff going on in political side, but on the economic side alone, 2 very big reforms. One is the National Medical Commission, NMC Act, which replaces the archaic Indian Medical Council Act. So that's a big reform, and I particularly notice it because, I was very deeply involved with it in the actual writing of the new act, which has now been passed in both the houses, big one. And the other one is what we saw just within the last few days, which is the knocking down of the corporate profit tax for all companies, domestic companies, that is to 22%, which with other surcharges, etc., will be 25%. And for the new investment, it is down to 15% plus 2, which is 17. So that is a huge, particularly if you're trying to bring in foreign companies, the foreign multinationals to our shores, which are leaving now the Chinese shores. I think that's a huge impetus, huge incentive.
2 things have happened recently. One, earlier this month, the US-India Business Council said that there's an opportunity for India given the global economic situation. How does India exploit that opportunity and unleash its potential? And 2, there is so much talk about a $5 trillion economy, which is a rather ambitious target that the government seems to have set itself given the global economic environment. Are we on course to achieving that, first of all, and exploiting those opportunities? And B, how does it affect or help the common person, the common man in India?
Okay, there's lots of questions there. Let me see if I can keep track. So it is currently we do have a big opportunity, particularly because for 2 reasons: rising wages, which are already about 3 times in China than in India. So that gives India a big advantage over the Chinese wages. And of course, the trade war, which limits the access of the companies that are trying to export products from China to the United States. So many companies are trying to move out of China. So it does give us a big opportunity. And I think it is time that we really take advantage of it. The cut in the corporate profit tax is a big boost. I think that will help. But we'll need to do more on labor laws, on Land Acquisition Act, etc. Your second question on $5 trillion economy, Prime Minister is ambitious. And so, of course, he always sets ambitious targets. But, I think it's achievable. And even if we don't exactly hit 5 billion, we'll come close.
The trade war between the US and China, while most agree that it is not going to help anyone, it makes everybody bleed. Some have also said that this is an opportunity in wolves' clothing for India, and India can
well,
fill the gaps.
I was probably one of the very early ones And even while I was at Niti Aayog, actually, I was trying to push on that frontier. Because, you see, China has a 12% share in the global export market. And a lot of these exports come to the United States. So, that's one factor. But there's also the second factor going on, which is the Chinese wages have gone up. Today, Chinese wages are easily about 3 times the wages of India on average. So, there's a big shift underway of the production structure, location of production. Right now, in most of the news that you see, largely this movement is happening to Vietnam and to Bangladesh and all. But none of them have got the kind of large workforce that is ultimately required to replace China as the manufacturing factory of the world. Only India has that kind of workforce.